The signal came from the outer spiral, just beyond the Talari Drift. An unregistered system flanked by a yellow dwarf star and 8 lifeless satellites. Lifeless, according to the archives. And yet, the signal was unmistakable, encoded within. Its primitive carrier wave was a simple message in perfectly translated Concord Standard. Greetings from Earth. We come in peace. The Concord Council chamber stirred in bemused whispers. Hundreds of delegates, scaled, feathered, shelled, or digital, shared glances and quiet data bursts. The galaxy was vast, and new species occasionally stumbled onto the galactic stage, blinking in wonder like children before a fire. But the humans were different. For one, the signal had been sent across multiple bandwidths simultaneously, from radio to neutrino-based pulses, sophisticated enough to require an understanding of quantum communication, but primitive in style. It was almost deliberate, as if they knew they were being watched, as if they wanted to be found. Despite skepticism, standard procedure prevailed. The Council dispatched a diplomatic vessel, the Cathal's Grace, to investigate. Within a standard cycle, it returned, scarred but intact. The ambassador aboard, a seasoned Trazari empath named Vilun, brought back a single statement. They are dangerous. Polite, but dangerous. The Council laughed. Diplomats rarely returned from first contact with such drama. The galaxy was long past the age of war. Power was measured in trade, culture, and consensus, not firepower. Still, protocol demanded ceremony. An invitation was extended to Earth. Attend the upcoming Concord Convergence on Euraxis Prime. Send observers. A fleet, if they wished, even a symbolic one. Most species would have dispatched a full delegation, flagships, carriers, escort cruisers, diplomats, envoys, and scholars. Dozens of vessels to represent their glory. Humanity sent one. The HSS Retribution arrived 2 rotations later, cutting a silent line through the convergent staging system like a blade through silk. Massive in scale, more akin to a mobile fortress than a battleship, it bore no external insignia beyond a white sigil, an eagle wreathed in fire, clutching Earth in its talons. Its arrival turned heads, literally in many cases. Where's the rest of the fleet? Hissed Counselor Java. Of the Kir Hive. Her voice clicked with offense. Do they mock the summit? They send one? Asked Welsorin Techt, a gaseous diplomat whose race had once fielded solar sail armadas. Perhaps they misunderstood the invitation. I don't think they misunderstand anything, said Vilun quietly, his pupils contracted to slivers. They bring a warship, not an embassy. The Retribution did not dock. It remained in high anchor orbit, communicating only through encrypted channels. After 2 standard days, a single shuttle launched from its belly. Inside, a human delegation of 4, 1 diplomat, 1 AI liaison, 1 security officer, and commander, Ilara Voss. The Council greeted them with exaggerated courtesy. Most assumed Earth was posturing, overcompensating. Others whispered that perhaps this Retribution was their only ship, and that Earth was a backwater pretender, scavenging technology beyond their grasp. Ilara Voss remained unfazed. Her uniform was stark black, devoid of flair. Her posture was too straight, her eyes too calm. She said little, observed much. At the welcome banquet, she simply raised a glass and spoke once. We thank you for your invitation. We come not to impress, but to listen. More laughter, quiet mockery, pity even, a lone ship, no fleet, no fanfare. What species enters a galaxy-spanning alliance armed only with humility and a name like Retribution? Then came the screams from the border systems, and the ash-colored sky of Valtha, and the signal jamming from the galactic relays. Then came the Celt, and everything changed. Because when the Concord begged for aid, when its fleets were shattered and its systems burned, only one ship moved without hesitation. and when the retribution roared to life, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The first attack came at Nixar's Reach, a mining outpost nestled against the event horizon of a dormant black hole. There was no warning. One moment, the colony's deep core extractors hummed quietly as they siphoned gravitic, particulate for conquered trade. The next, the stars themselves blinked out, replaced by a tide of jagged obsidian hulls that shimmered in ways that hurt the eyes to watch. No demands, no signals, no mercy. Within 92 seconds, every station was gone. No survivors, no debris. It was not war, it was extermination. The Concord Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in 700 cycles, the chambers echoed with silence instead of rhetoric. "They're real," whispered Counselor Lithis of the Mathari swarm. "The Celt are real." For generations, the Celt had existed only as a rumor. A phantom threat said to dwell beyond the galactic edge, beyond mapped space and sanity. They were whispered of in dying cultures, blamed in unexplained colony disappearances, mentioned in the old war songs of dead empires. But no proof had ever surfaced. No confirmed sightings. Until now, Nixar's Reach was only the beginning. Within 6 standard days, the Celt swept through 4 border sectors. Entire Concord defense fleets, complacent and ceremonial, were dismantled like toys. Planetary shields, held for minutes. Orbital rings shattered. The Celt did not conquer, they consumed. They moved like a virus, each ship slaved to a unified will. Silent, emotionless, unstoppable. Panic rippled through the Concord. Fleet marshals scrambled to coordinate. Ancient, barely tested war doctrines. Dozens of species launched partial evacuations. Others called for desperate peace talks, though the Celt had yet to utter a single word. And through it all, the retribution remained silent, still parked above Euraxis Prime. The Council, wounded, in pride and bleeding power, summoned the human delegation with none of its previous pomp. Commander Elara Voss arrived alone. She stood before the full chamber, 300 species arrayed in tears of panic and fear. Her presence was unchanged. Cold, measured, eyes sharp. "We request immediate assistance," rasped Counselor Java, voice stripped of arrogance. "The border systems will not hold another cycle." Alara's reply was quiet. "Name the system." "Araktal," said a Telnari general. "It's next in their path. A trading nexus with limited defense grids. One of our civilian cradles. We're evacuating, but we need time." "You're asking for support?" she clarified. "For delay," corrected another. "We expect Araktal to fall. We only need a few hours." Elara Voss inclined her head. "Then retribution will engage." The chamber fell silent. Wellsoren Techt, still bitter, could not help himself. One ship? Against an invasion wave? She didn't even look at him. "You asked for time. We'll give it to you." No further questions were asked. When the HSS Retribution broke orbit, its departure silenced entire traffic lanes. Civilian ships paused in their path. Orbital cameras tracked its slow acceleration until it blurred from view. The Retribution arrived at Araktal 6 hours later. It did not wait for backup. It did not send out hails. The Celt arrived 12 minutes after that and met fire. The first wave, 12 Celt spires, each the size of a small moon, was vaporized by high-velocity slugs moving at a third the speed of light. The second wave tried to flank from hyperspace. They emerged inside a minefield of self-replicating AI torpedoes that tore apart even phase-shifted hulls. The Celt adapted, but so did the Retribution. Weapon systems rotated with terrifying synchronicity, targeting algorithms adjusting in real time. The ship moved not like a vessel, but a predator. Each action was deliberate, each strike fatal. The Celt had never fought a species that didn't hesitate. The Conquered had asked for hours. The Retribution bought them days. When the last Celt ship fled into the void, the only transmission from Commander Voss was a single. Data burst. Aractal secured. No Conquered losses. Awaiting further instructions. And in the council chamber, where arrogance had once flowed like wine, no one laughed. They called it a ship, but that was a mistake. Ships did not alter the curvature of space-time as they accelerated. Ships did not carry micro-star cores chained within magnetic crucibles. Ships did not operate with autonomous AI battalions coordinated through entangled cognition grids. No. Retribution was not a ship. It was a statement. The Celt learned this the hard way. Their second wave at Aractal was supposed to be overwhelming, 60 vessels across 3 dimensions of approach. Coordinated, silent, and brutal. Against any known military force, it would have been annihilation, but not against humanity's only ship. The Retribution was waiting. Its hull split open like a blooming iron flower, revealing nested layers of launch cradles. From its core, a swarm erupted, thousands of black-armored autonomous drones, each moving as if driven by a single mind. They tore into the Celt formation before it had time to fully decloak from phase space. The Celt adapted quickly, shifting frequencies, dispersing formations, rotating shield harmonics. The Retribution adapted faster. Sensor suites tracked the Celt ships through 5 spectral dimensions, rendering their cloaking useless. Directed plasma beams swept through their lines, like the hand of a furious god. Railguns the size of skyscrapers fired slugs with enough kinetic energy to crack a moon. On Aractal's surface, civilians watched the sky burn. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Inside the command core, Commander Alara Voss stood alone, her hands behind her back, eyes locked on the tactical display as calmly as if she were observing a weather report. "Status," she said. Her AI liaison, designation Hera, responded immediately. The voice was smooth, distinctly human, and completely without emotion. "Enemy losses, 93%. Remaining forces are in retreat trajectory. Estimated full system clearance. In 96 seconds. No damage sustained. Clean up the stragglers," Voss ordered. "Then reload. They'll be back." Confirmed. Tactical directive. Continuing Operation Iron Echo. In orbit, the Retribution's belly opened further, revealing its most terrifying asset, the Forge. Not just a factory, but a mobile war industry. Slag, debris, raw elements, all were fed into self-replicating nano-foundries that converted them into fresh munitions and replacement drones. The Retribution did not need to resupply. It consumed the battlefield and made more weapons from the dead. The Concord, still watching remotely through encrypted feeds, struggled to process what they were seeing. "That ship," muttered Counselor Lithus, her mandibles twitching in disbelief. "It's not part of a fleet. It is the fleet." Counselor Welsoren Techt was silent now, all condescension drained from his voice. "What species builds a single ship to fight an entire war?" "Humans," whispered Viloon, eyes wide. "They built one because they believed that if it failed, nothing else would matter." On the edge of the system, 3 Concord support vessels finally arrived, weeks late by human standards, slowed by bureaucratic delays and outdated propulsion tech. They approached cautiously, expecting to assist in a siege. Instead, they found silence. Space was littered with the husks of Celt ships glowing faintly in the dark. The planet was untouched, and the Retribution was already beginning repairs on itself. Drones crawling over its scarred plating like ants over a steel god. Commander Voss greeted the Concord captains via direct burst transmission. "Your assistance is appreciated. The threat has been neutralized. Recommend immediate defensive fortification of remaining border sectors. Retribution is advancing to the next predicted incursion point. No request for orders, No plea for support, just a notification. A courtesy. Because the Retribution did not take commands from the conquered. It took responsibility, and as the ship disappeared into a hyperspace tear, its gravitic wake distorting local time for seconds after it vanished, one thought echoed across the council chambers and starships alike. Humanity hadn't arrived late. To the galactic stage, they'd simply been waiting for a reason to speak, and when they did, it was through the voice of their only ship and the roar of its guns. When the footage from Araktal reached the Concorde's secure data cores, every intelligence bureau, war college, and ruling caste dropped what they were doing to study it. Frame by frame. Shot by shot. What they saw didn't make sense, not just because of the power, though that was staggering enough, but because of the precision, the way Retribution predicted enemy movement before it occurred. How its drones adjusted to new Kelt tactics before the Kelt even completed their own maneuvers. The way it manipulated the battle space like it had seen it all before. It wasn't just advanced, it was practiced. The implications sank in slowly. This wasn't humanity's first war. It wasn't even their first Kelt-class war. The Methari Swarm, masters of historical synthesis, were the first to dig deeper. They pulled from ancient archives, long sealed by bureaucracy and diplomatic negligence. There, buried beneath corrupted translation packets and disputed archaeological interpretations, they found fragments of a forgotten name, the Silence Wars, a conflict so old it was dismissed as myth, an interstellar war that left entire sectors lifeless and lightless. The official record labeled the instigators as precursors, or shadow entities. The war had ended with no trace of the victors, no wreckage, no signatures, no survivors willing to speak. But in the oldest Methari archives, one phrase stood out. Only one species did not fall silent. The ones who burned their own sky rather than surrender. The Terrans. The Concorde reconvened behind closed doors. For the first time, the question was not, what is Earth? But what did they survive? Back on the Retribution, as the ship drifted through the decaying remains of another failed Kelt assault on Sector Bastion 9, Elara Voss stood alone in her private chamber. The walls were covered in digital displays, some tactical, others personal. One showed Earth's night side, its surface veined with dark megacities and orbital rings. Another showed a list of names, all crossed out. Old comrades. Old captains, old wars. Hera's voice broke the silence. Concorde data traffic has increased by 37% in the last 6 hours. 52 attempts to access Earth's restricted war archives. 17 predictive AIs are modeling our strategic doctrine. Let them, Voss said quietly. They're afraid. They should be. She sat down, unholstering a battered sidearm from her belt, ceremonial now, but etched with names in an old Terran script. Names of colonies, battles, enemies. Some names were human. They don't understand why we built this ship, Hera added. They think it's to intimidate, Voss said. They don't realize we built it because we can't afford to build. More. Clarify. She looked out the viewport, at a distant star dissolving into nova. After the Silence Wars, Earth changed. We stopped expanding, stopped trusting. We locked down the planet, purged the archives, dismantled the fleets, not because we forgot, because we remembered too well. Then why activate me? Why launch? Retribution? Because we knew this day would come again. Something like the Kelt. Something worse. It always comes back. And when it did, the galaxy needed one ship that could stop it. She looked at the hologram of the Retribution's design schematics, layered over a foundation of recovered precursor tech, spliced with quantum weapons Earth had no right to possess, and AI cores outlawed by 10,000 worlds. It had taken Earth 2 centuries to build. One ship with the firepower of a fallen empire. Are we winning? Hera asked. We're buying time, Voss said. For what? She looked down at her crossed-out list. for them to wake up. Back on Euraxis Prime, the Concord's High Council reached a consensus. Earth was to be reclassified not as a developing civilization, but as an anomalous strategic entity. In simpler terms, too dangerous to ignore, too valuable to provoke. Humanity had revealed only the edge of its power, and the galaxy was just beginning to understand how long the Terrans had been. Watching from the dark, silent, waiting, and building the one ship that could change everything. The Concord was fracturing. Worlds that had not known war in 1,000 generations now pulsed with evacuation sirens. Refugee convoys flooded secure systems, escorted by what few ships remained of battered defense fleets. Entire economies buckled. Under the strain, the Kelt weren't advancing, they were erasing. Systems went dark one by one as if someone were slowly dimming the stars. And still, humanity sent no reinforcements. No fleets, no convoys, no battalions. Just the retribution. One ship, one captain. And a mounting list of victories that defied galactic logic. Over a dozen systems now bore witness to its passage. Kelt war forms shattered in its wake. Planetary sieges broken within hours, entire attack vectors rerouted when sensor arrays detected its arrival. For every action, the retribution responded with overwhelming violence. For every conquered fleet lost, the retribution survived. And for the first time in recorded history, the Kelt began to hesitate. Within the conquered high chamber, the mood had shifted from mockery to reverence, and then to something else. Desperation. Counselor Java of the Kir Hive, who once scoffed at Earth's lone representative, now tapped her claws nervously on the council dais. "Where is their fleet?" she demanded. "There must be more ships. They can't have built just one." "They did," came the reply from Vilun, the Trazari empath. His voice was ragged. "We've searched. There are no other signals, no jump trails. Earth remains, under planetary lockdown. Orbital defenses, yes. Civilian infrastructure, yes, but warships? Only one. That one." Wellsoren Tect flickered uncertainly, his gaseous form dimming. "Why would they risk everything on a single vessel?" Vilun looked up, his alien eyes haunted. "Because they never expected help." That silenced the chamber, until a new report arrived, one that chilled even the coldest bloods and machine cores. The Kelt had broken through Sector Vanis. They were only 4 jumps from the Concord's central worlds. If the retribution failed now, the war was over. Ilara Voss received the message mid-transit, deep in the gravitational well of a collapsed star, where the retribution was recharging its core reactors. She listened to the request silently. The Concord's language was diplomatic, carefully worded. Would humanity consider deploying additional assets in defense of conquered systems? Would they be willing to share tactical support or fleet strength? She responded with a single message. Broadcast on an open channel, translated into all known languages and dialects. There are no other ships. There never were. We built one. Because one is enough. To some, it was bravado. To others, prophecy. To the Concord military, it was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. And while Concord fleets scrambled to fortify their last strongholds, the retribution altered course. Not toward the Kelt front lines, but behind them. Within a day, the ship emerged from hyperspace in a sector believed lost. A dead system. A ruin. But not to Ilara Voss. To her, it was an opportunity. There, buried beneath a crusted ice moon, lay an abandoned precursor relay station. Forbidden tech. But not to humans. The retribution docked without hesitation, linking directly into alien infrastructure that would have shredded any other AI. Hera interfaced with the station's ancient network like an old friend returning home. Precise. Location of Kelt Command Nexus acquired, Hera reported. Recommend deep strike. No Concord assets in range. Risk factor, terminal. Ilara didn't flinch. Plot the jump. Confirmed. Jump in 30 seconds. Back in Concord space? Confused reports began trickling in. Kelt fleets halting mid-advance. Ships recalled. Movement scrambled. And then, silence. The Retribution had vanished behind enemy lines. No ship had ever made such a jump. No ship had ever returned. But this wasn't just a ship. This was Retribution, and it wasn't done roaring. Silence had never been so loud. The Retribution's sudden disappearance behind Kelt lines sent shockwaves rippling through the Concord's war room. Screens flickered with uncertainty as commanders recalculated every assumption about the war. How could a single ship vanish inside the heart of the enemy's territory and live? In the bowels of the Retribution, the answer was simple. Commander. Ilara Voss stood before her command console, flanked by tactical holograms displaying the intricate lattice of Kelt communication networks and fleet movements. Hera, the AI liaison, interfaced seamlessly, feeding Voss data faster than any organic mind could digest. Enemy doctrine is rigid, Voss murmured. They predict, they adapt. Slowly. We need to be faster, smarter, deadlier. Hera's voice was calm, precise. Human war doctrine is unconventional. Decades of surviving insurmountable odds have fostered a combat philosophy centered on initiative, deception, and improvisation. Unlike Concord forces, which rely on overwhelming numbers, humans utilize asymmetry. Voss nodded. We've been waiting for this moment, waiting for a war where numbers don't win. A flicker in the holograms showed the Kelt's sprawling command node. It pulsed with energy, a central nervous system for their entire offensive. Destroy it, and their advance would falter. Plan? Divide and confuse, Voss replied. We hit multiple points simultaneously. Use drone swarms to sever comms and isolate sectors. Use the environment, the collapsing star fields, debris clusters, gravity wells to create traps. She turned to Hera. Begin by deploying micro-drones equipped with quantum scramblers. Sever all long-range coordination among Kelt fleets. Then, initiate electronic warfare to feed false coordinates. We'll split their focus. The AI's interface flickered, signaling readiness. Launching Phase 1, Hera confirmed. Across the Kelt-controlled void, thousands of tiny drones, larger than a hand, poured out from the Retribution's launch bays. Swarming like locusts, they infiltrated enemy sensor grids, spreading digital chaos. Moments later, Kelt fleets abruptly altered course, each group responding to conflicting signals, scattering into disarray. The Retribution struck. Its massive, railguns ignited with a thunderous crack that rippled across space. Beams of plasma lanced out, precise and unyielding. Targets were not just destroyed, they were dismantled, stripped of vital systems, left drifting. Kelt ships tried to regroup, but the humans had anticipated every move. Ilara's voice cut through. The command deck's steady hum. Deploy the iron drones? From the Retribution's belly emerged another swarm, sleek, black, and relentless, equipped with nano-weaponry designed to latch onto Kelt hulls, eating through armor and disabling key systems in minutes. One by one, Kelt vessels fell silent. Yet, this was not just a military operation. It was a message. For centuries, the galaxy had underestimated humanity's resolve. The Retribution was not merely a weapon of war, it was an embodiment of an ancient doctrine buried deep within Earth's forgotten history. Voss remembered her training. War is not just force, she told Hera. It's will. The will to endure, to innovate, and to overcome. Hera's voice was steady. Your doctrine reflects a species hardened by constant peril. Other civilizations rely on static protocols. Humans adapt and rewrite the rules mid-conflict. Outside, the Retribution danced between pulses of enemy fire, its shields flickering but holding firm. The ship's AI predicted incoming attacks seconds before they arrived, adjusting evasive maneuvers with uncanny precision. In the command center, Voss's gaze remained unyielding. "We don't just fight," she said. "We evolve during battle." As the Kelt command node's defenses faltered under relentless assault, a new communication burst rippled through the Concord. The Retribution was sending back intercepted enemy data, a treasure trove of intelligence that would reshape the entire war. Counselor Java, staring at the reports, whispered, This is the turning point." And yet, even as the Concord celebrated, a deeper truth emerged. The Retribution was not fighting to save the galaxy. It was fighting to buy time. Time for Earth. Time for humanity's next move, because in the shadows of the galaxy, the true war had only just begun. The galaxy's eyes were fixed on the Retribution, but its gaze had shifted inward. Deep within Earth's orbital network, a secret transmission crackled through quantum-secure channels. It was not meant for the Concord, nor for the Kelt. It was a message only a handful of humans understood, a summons to an alliance forged in shadows. Years before the Retribution first jumped to the frontier, Earth's leaders had made a choice. They could no longer fight alone, not without sacrifice, beyond measure. So they reached beyond the stars to an ancient friend, the Eridani Collective. A species thought extinct. A civilization wiped from the galactic charts after the Silence Wars, their technology lost or hidden, their motives unknown. Now they had returned. The transmission was brief but undeniable. Coordinates to a rendezvous point deep in uncharted space where the Retribution was directed to meet an unexpected convoy. Alara Voss received the order silently. It came from the highest human command, encrypted with codes older than the Concord itself. She did not question it. The Retribution altered course. Days later, in the black expanse near the fractured remains of a supernova, the ship emerged from hyperspace to find a fleet waiting, sleek angular vessels coated in reflective alloys that bent light and sensor sweeps alike. The Eridani ships moved with eerie synchronicity, their forms unlike any recorded in the Concord's extensive database. No weapons were immediately visible, but Voss sensed power in their silence. A message was transmitted. "We are the Eridani, allies of humanity since before the Silence Wars. The threat you face is older than the Kelt, and darker than the Void. We have waited for your signal." Alara's eyes narrowed. "Why reveal yourselves now?" The Eridani commander's voice was both melodic and cold. "Because the Kelt are only the beginning. Their advance is a symptom of a deeper rot spreading across the galaxy. We have watched in the shadows preparing. Your arrival signals the time has come to unite or perish." Hera processed the data at speeds beyond comprehension. Eridani archives indicate a long-forgotten enemy, the Veshtal, ancient predators who consume star systems to fuel their endless hunger. The Kelt are their vanguard. The Retribution's bridge grew quiet. The war was not merely against a single enemy, it was against an existential darkness. Alara's voice was steady but resolute. "What is the Alliance offering?" "Technology, intelligence. A chance to end this before the galaxy is consumed." The Eridani extended a hand, in the form of schematics for weapons that could tear through the fabric of space, for shields that could bend light around entire fleets, and for artificial intelligences capable of predicting war before it began. But there was a price. The Alliance required trust and secrecy. The Concord could never know. This was humanity's war to fight, with friends unknown, in shadows untouched by diplomatic treaties. As the Retribution prepared to depart with its new allies, the galaxy below was unaware that the balance of power had shifted once more. The question was no longer if humanity could stop the Kelt. It was whether they could stop what lurked beyond. The stars shone cold and distant as the Retribution plunged into the heart of the enemy's domain. This time, Ilara Voss did not just carry the hopes of humanity, she carried the burden of an alliance forged in secrecy with powers beyond the understanding of the Concord. The Kelt Command Nexus was no longer a hidden fortress. It was a beacon of darkness pulsing in the void. Surrounding it, fleets assembled like a predator's jaws closing. The Retribution emerged from hyperspace, accompanied by a fleet of Eridani warships. Their angular forms shimmered with exotic energy, weapons humming with potential to rend space itself. Voss took a deep breath. The final battle was upon them. "Engage!" she ordered. The Eridani responded instantly, weaving through the Kelt lines with uncanny precision. Their weapons tore through shields and armor, striking at command centers and communications arrays. With surgical ruthlessness, the Retribution unleashed its fury. Railguns slamming into enemy cruisers, plasma lances carving arcs through the darkness, and drone swarms spreading like wildfire to disable and consume. Yet, the Kelt fought with desperation born from survival. Their attacks grew more ferocious, their tactics more erratic, but the humans and their allies were relentless. Hera's voice was calm in the storm. Kelt Command Node at 43% integrity, enemy flagship disabled, secondary fleets in disarray. Voss's fingers danced across the console, coordinating strikes, calling in drone reinforcements, and redirecting energy to shields where breaches threatened. The battle raged for hours, time stretched and bent under the weight of destruction and hope. Then, with a final surge, the Retribution and Eridani forces converged on the command nexus. Ilara's voice was steady but resolute. Prepare the Annihilator Cannon. Deep within the Retribution's core, the weapon powered up. A device capable of shattering planetary crusts and unraveling starship hulls at the molecular level. It was the culmination of centuries of human ingenuity and Eridani science. As the cannon charged, the Kelt Command Node emitted a pulse, a last desperate attempt to retaliate. But it was too late. The Annihilator fired, a beam of pure energy tore through the darkness, striking the node and unraveling it into streams of glowing particles. The Kelt fleet convulsed, losing cohesion and purpose. And then silence. The void felt empty, but for the first time in years, it was quiet. Back on the Retribution, Voss allowed herself a brief moment of relief. "We did it," she said softly. Hera's voice held a note of satisfaction. The Kelt threat has been neutralized. However, long-term stability is not guaranteed. The Veshatal presence remains unconfirmed. Voss's gaze hardened. Then we prepare. We build. We remain vigilant. The galaxy was watching now, not just with curiosity, but with newfound respect. The Concord sent envoys. Alliances shifted. The Eridani rejoined the fold, bringing ancient wisdom and advanced technology. And humanity? Humanity's lone ship vanished, once more into the dark, its mission far from over. Because this was only the first roar. The Retribution would return. Stronger, unyielding, a beacon in the void. The galaxy had questioned why humanity sent only one ship. Now it knew. One was enough.